Welcome to This Explainer. It's kind of funny. We slop these massive military-grade cases on our cell phones so they don't shatter if we drop them off the couch. But we completely ignore the only things keeping our 4,000-pound cars glued to the pavement at highway speeds. Yep, today we're talking about your tires. We're going to totally transform how you view the rubber on your wheels and give you the exact tools you need to maximize their lifespan, optimize your ride, and honestly, keep you and your family safe out there.
To make all this actionable, here's our game plan. First, we'll cover why tire maintenance actually matters. Second, we'll look at proper inflation. Third, regular rotation. Fourth, evaluating wear. And fifth, exactly when you need to replace them.
All right, Section 1, why tire maintenance matters. Let's look at the actual physical stakes here.
Have you ever really stopped to think about what connects your car to the road? Really think about it. It's just 4 small patches of rubber. Each one is literally about the size of your hand. That is it. That's the only thing keeping your massive, heavy vehicle safely on the highway. Those 4 tiny contact patches have to grip the asphalt, keep you from sliding in the rain, and channel water out so you don't hydroplane. When you put it in that perspective, the condition of those 4 little patches suddenly feels incredibly important, doesn't it?
And here's where the rubber meets the road. Pun absolutely intended. Your tread depth and your stopping distance have this direct, honestly terrifying inverse relationship. As that tread gets shallower, it takes you way longer to stop. Check this out. A tire with its tread worn down to 2/32 of an inch takes nearly twice as long to completely stop on a wet roadway compared to a brand new tire. Twice as long. Imagine you need to slam on the brakes in a rainstorm. That extra distance is quite literally the difference between a close call that just gets your heart racing and a serious collision.
Okay, so step 1 for keeping those patches healthy: proper inflation. It's the most basic habit, but man, it is so widely misunderstood.
First things first, to get an accurate pressure reading, you absolutely must measure what's called a cold tire. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be snowing outside. It just means the vehicle has been parked for at least 3 hours or driven for less than a single mile at a moderate speed. Why? Well, driving naturally heats up the rubber, and that heat expands the air inside, which can temporarily spike your tire pressure by 4 to 6 psi. So, if you check your pressure on a warm tire and let some air out to match your car's manual, you're actually dangerously underinflating your tires without even realizing it.
So, where do you find that magic number? Next time you walk to your car, pop open the driver's side door and check the door jamb for a little sticker, usually yellow and white. This placard tells you the exact cold tire pressure the manufacturer recommends for your specific vehicle. Whatever you do, do not look at the number stamped on the side of the tire itself. That just tells you the absolute maximum pressure the tire can hold before it bursts, not the recommended pressure for a safe, smooth ride.
And please, listen to me on this. You cannot just eyeball your tires. And giving them a quick kick with your shoe, yeah, that is absolutely not a valid maintenance strategy. A tire can be underinflated by a full 10 psi and still look perfectly normal to the naked eye. You need to rely on a good quality gauge. If you run underinflated, it causes dangerous heat buildup inside the tire, ruins the internal structure, and eats away at the outside edges of the tread. On the flip side, if you overinflate, the tire gets super stiff. It'll ride terribly, wear out right down the center much faster, and you're way more likely to blow out on a pothole.
Let's keep moving. Step 2 of our framework: regular rotation. Let's talk about extending the life of your investment.
Even if your inflation is flawless, tires are just naturally going to wear differently depending on where they sit on the car. The front tires usually do the steering and most of the braking, right? So to combat that uneven wear, you generally want to rotate your tires every 5,000 to 7,500 miles. Honestly, the easiest hack here is just to ask the shop to rotate them every single time you go in for an oil change. It spreads the workload evenly over the life of the tires, which maximizes your mileage and saves you money.
But rotation isn't just a random game of musical chairs. For standard vehicles with 4 identically sized non-directional tires, they use a specific cross-rotation pattern. Usually, the rear tires are moved straight up to the front, and the front tires are crossed over to opposite sides on the rear axle. This specific crisscross spreads the wear patterns out as optimally as possible.
However, there's a catch. Not all tires are created equal. If your car has directional tires, which means the tread has a V-shape designed to roll forward to aggressively push water away, those have to stay on the same side of the car. You can only move them straight, front to back, and back to front. If you were to cross them, you'd be installing them backwards. They basically funnel water into the center of the tire instead of away from it, which actively creates a massive hydroplaning hazard in the rain. Oh, and for anyone out there driving a sports car with staggered tires, meaning your rear tires are noticeably wider than the front ones, you obviously can't swap those front to back at all. They literally won't fit. Those can only be swapped side to side on their respective axles. So knowing your specific vehicle setup is absolutely crucial. All right, moving on to step 3, evaluating wear. Time to put on your detective hat.
Your tires actually tell a physical story about how your vehicle is running if you just know what to look for. For example, if you look at your tire and see that both the inner and outer edges are wearing down super fast while the center still looks okay, you've got definitive proof of chronic underinflation. Basically, the tire isn't holding its shape, it's sagging in the middle and putting all the friction and pressure directly onto those outer shoulders.
Now, let's flip that. If the tread is getting totally smoothed out right down the middle line, but the outer edges look relatively fresh, that tire has been running overinflated. Too much air causes the center of the tire to literally balloon outward, meaning that specific middle strip is taking the entire brunt of the road surface.
And what if you spot wear concentrated on just one single shoulder? Like maybe just the extreme inside edge or only the outside edge is worn down. That actually points to a mechanical issue, not an air pressure issue. Your toe or camber alignment, the physical angle that your wheels are bolted to the car, is officially out of specification. You're essentially dragging the tire sideways as you drive. You've got to get that checked before it completely destroys your tire.
Beyond looking for uneven wear, you also need to know how much overall tread depth you have left. The classic DIY method is the penny test. Grab a penny, flip it so Lincoln's head is pointing downward, and shove it straight into the tread groove. If you can see the very top of Lincoln's head, meaning there's a visible gap between his head and the rubber, well, your tire is legally worn out and honestly dangerously bald.
Which brings us to our final section, understanding exactly when to replace those tires. Let's look at the numbers.
Most brand new tires roll out of the factory with a tread depth of about 10/32 of an inch. When they wear down to 6/32, they're still in perfectly good shape. But once they hit 4/32, that's the threshold where most tire professionals start telling you to shop for replacements. And by the time you hit 2/32, which is right when the rubber wears down flush with those little horizontal indicator bars built into the tire grooves, you are at the absolute dangerous minimum. It's actually illegal to drive on them in most states at that point.
But wait, here is a super critical insider tip. Even though the law accepts that 2/32 mark, which remember is exactly what that classic penny test measures, tire experts today are strongly urging drivers to use a Washington quarter instead to test for 4/32. Why change the coin? Because modern studies prove that stopping power and wet traction drop off a cliff right below 4/32 of an inch. If you're waiting until you fail the penny test, you have already been driving a severely compromised vehicle for thousands of miles. Use a quarter.
And finally, there's one more rule you need to know, and it has nothing to do with tread depth. It's the rule of 6 and 10. Rubber degrades over time. Ozone, UV rays, temperature swings, they literally dry rot the tire from the inside out. Because of this, you should start heavily considering a replacement when a tire is 6 years old, counting from its manufacture date. And if a tire hits 10 years old, you must absolutely discard it, period. Even if it was sitting in a climate-controlled garage and looks brand new with full tread, it is structurally unsafe. So keeping in mind those massive stakes for your stopping distance, the rapid damage from improper air pressure, and the invisible ticking clock of rubber degradation, before you take your next drive, I really want you to ask yourself, do you actually know how old the tires on your car are right now? When was the very last time you genuinely checked them? Trust me on this one, take care of your tires and they will absolutely take care of you.